let's talk about one of the most pivotal moments in Islamic history, the death of Prophet Muhammad, ﷺ. Now, you probably think you know exactly how it happened. But what if the story we've all been told isn't the whole story? Today, we're going to dig into the sources to ask, where did the Prophet truly pass away? And you'll see why the answer to that question changes, well, pretty much everything.
Okay, so here's the version of the story most of us know. It comes from Aisha, and it paints this very intimate, very specific picture. The Prophet ﷺ, in his final moments, resting peacefully in her arms, in her house. For centuries, this has been the mainstream narrative, the one you'll find in countless books and hear in countless lectures. It's the accepted version of events.
But, and this is a huge but, what if that's not what happened? This is where we have to really start digging into the historical record, because the sources we're looking at today don't just offer a different perspective, they present a direct and powerful challenge to that entire narrative. They ask, is this the full picture? And the evidence they put forward suggests that this common story is, to put it mildly, heavily contested.
So if that's not the story, what is? Well, the main counter-narrative comes from the one person who was, by all accounts, inseparable from the Prophet ﷺ, especially in his final hours, Imam Ali alayhi salam.
Now, just take a moment to absorb the weight of this. This isn't a vague claim. It's an incredibly detailed, profoundly personal testimony from Imam Ali alayhi salam himself, recorded in the Nahj al-Balagha. He says unequivocally that the Prophet ﷺ passed away while physically leaning on his chest. This isn't hearsay or a second-hand account. This is a direct statement from someone who was right there.
And right here, you can see the conflict in black and white. On one side, you have Aisha's account. The Prophet died resting between her chest and arms. On the other, Imam Ali alayhi salam's account. The Prophet died while leaning on his chest. You've got two central figures with two completely different, totally irreconcilable stories about the most sacred moment in the Prophet's life. They both can't be true.
So you have to ask, was this just a he said, she said situation? One person's word against another's? Not at all. According to the sources we're analyzing, Imam Ali alayhi salam's account doesn't stand alone. It's actually backed up by other key witnesses. And what's really fascinating is that some of these testimonies are found in Sunni historical texts.
Let's just walk through the evidence here. First up, you have Ibn Abbas, a very close companion. The sources say that when he was asked point-blank about Aisha's claim, he flatly denied it and confirmed the Prophet ﷺ passed away leaning on Imam Ali alayhi salam. Then there's Al-Shabi, a Sunni narrator, who is recorded as saying the Prophet's head was in Ali's lap when he died. But perhaps the most telling part is the reported reaction from Omar. When people would ask him about it, he'd apparently just defer, saying, "Go ask Ali. He was the one in charge of the Prophet's affairs." So this brings us to the million-dollar question. Why? Why all the fuss over this one detail? Who was in the room? Who was holding the Prophet? I mean, what's really at stake here? It turns out this isn't just about preserving a personal memory. According to these sources, this is about something much, much bigger.
And here's where it all starts to click into place. The sources we've looked at argue that the motive for this conflicting story is all about one thing: political succession. The fight over who was with the Prophet ﷺ at the very end is completely tied up in the question of who was meant to lead the community after him.
And boom, there it is. The connection is made absolutely explicit right here, in a quote cited from Sahih Bukhari. Look at the logic. When the topic of Imam Ali alayhi salam being the successor comes up, Aisha's response is to use her presence as proof against it. Her argument is basically, how could he have appointed Ali? I was right there. He died on my chest and I didn't hear him say anything about a will. You see, the location of the death is being used as a tool to invalidate the final will, the Wasiyya.
So let's be crystal clear about what these sources are arguing. They're not just saying someone misremembered a detail under stress. They are claiming that the story of the Prophet ﷺ dying in Aisha's arms was a calculated political move, specifically designed to create doubt and undermine the legitimacy of Imam Ali alayhi salam as the divinely appointed successor.
Okay, but was this just a one-time thing? A single dispute that got out of hand? The sources argue, no way. They suggest that this incident is just one piece of a much larger, more systematic pattern of controlling the narrative, of suppressing certain truths to elevate others. Let's see how this pattern supposedly played out.
This timeline really puts it into perspective. It starts with the infamous event of the pen and paper, where the Prophet ﷺ asks to write a final will to protect his nation, but he's physically prevented from doing so. Immediately after his death, these conflicting narratives about his final moments suddenly emerge. Later on, you see historians like Al-Tabari being accused of actually changing hadith, removing key phrases like my successor and my caliph. Then it gets even more overt, with figures like Al-Dahabi reportedly saying that any reports that make the companions look bad should be hidden or even destroyed. And the final step? The outright burning of major Shia libraries, centuries later wiping out vast collections of knowledge.
So after going through all these conflicting accounts, the witness testimonies, and the alleged motives, where does that leave us? What is the final takeaway from this deep dive into the historical records?
The central argument here is that the truth of the Prophet's final moments is so much more than a historical curiosity. These sources contend that the Prophet ﷺ passing away in the arms of Imam Ali ﷺ was the final non-verbal confirmation of his leadership. It was the ultimate living embodiment of his will, a final profound endorsement of the man he had chosen to lead the community.
And so I'll leave you with this question to think about. When you're faced with two completely different stories about a single crucial moment in history, how do you figure out what really happened? What tools do you use to sift through the evidence? And maybe the more important question is, why was one story amplified and repeated for centuries, while the other was pushed to the margins? It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just about what happened, it's about who gets to tell the story.